Here's something we haven't said recently. The Trump administration is in another scandal. We've got a declassified intelligence briefing memo that blows the doors wide open on the lies that Donald Trump and his Department of Justice has been telling federal judges up to the United States Supreme Court about Donald Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to summarily deport people without notice to gulags in El Salvador. The primary premise and the basis of the use of that 1798 law is Donald Trump's declaration that the Maduro regime in Venezuela is in the back pocket of Tren de Aragua, a criminal narcotics gang, or vice versa, that Tren de Aragua, TDA, controls the Venezuelan government or the Venezuelan government controls TDA. But there's a new intelligence briefing that came out not from Biden's administration, but it's dated in April the 7th, and it comes from who? Donald Trump's own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. It was directed by her that her intelligence community analysts put together this memo. And the memo was obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request, not a leak. I know Pam Bondi's out there looking for leaks, but this wasn't a leak. This was obtained and it was declassified. In fact, it should never have been classified. And it shows that Donald Trump has been lying along with his lawyers to the judges about Venezuela and its relationship with TDA. And if that's false, then the entire use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport people and remove them without due process is false. And this memo will be filed, I assure you, in all the various courtrooms where these issues are being decided. I mean, we already had our first judge in the last 72 hours, Judge Rodriguez in the Southern District of Texas, without even knowing about this memo, which just got released to the press, declaring that Donald Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act is unconstitutional in any regard. Because he also found that the migration patterns of a bunch of people from TDA, even if they are TDA, coming to the United States over the last several years is not a predatory incursion of the United States equivalent to a war or having enemy combatants with Venezuela. Wait till the judge sees this memo. Wait, here we go. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals sits over Judge Rodriguez. This new information needs to be supplemented in the record immediately so that the appellate court has it on the way to the United States Supreme Court. That's how big a deal this is. It's also a big deal that you're here on Legal AF. Take a moment as we talk about this serious issue and hit the subscribe button and join our community, our fellowship. And then I'm going to post this memo on our Legal AF Substack. Legal AF Substack, you're going to find this memo. You'll be able to read it for yourself. I'm going to do a little bit of analysis of it right now. Let's get to it. It starts with Donald Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act from 1798. That, he says, gave him the power without due process. I mean, this is a president who's allergic to due process, unless it's his own, by the way. When he was a criminal defendant, all the way to a convict, he wanted all his due process, but he doesn't want due process for other people. He just gave an interview with Kristen Welker. I don't understand due process. I don't know if I have to give due process to everybody. What's the Fifth Amendment? I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Is that part of my oath? Yeah. I have brilliant lawyers. They'll tell me what to do. Well, they haven't so far. So you have that in one side. Then he issues the executive order, or the proclamation, if you will. Not a declaration of war, but pretty close. Only Congress can declare war, but he can proclaim war. And so he said, Tren de Aragua is an enemy combatant. They're controlling the Maduro regime in Venezuela. At the time he wrote that, he knew or should have known, Donald Trump, that his own intelligence community completely shot that out of the sky, completely refuted that. In fact, I'm going to read to you from the memo. Now, this memo has a number of interesting characteristics. One, there was one little part of dissent. The NSA and the CIA all reject any argument that Venezuela's regime is in bed with the TDA. At worst or at best, they tolerate TDA because they're making some money with them, and but they're also scared of them and see them as a threat to the stability of the government. So it's a little bit of that. That's one. Secondly, the FBI had a slightly different interpretation of some of the evidence, and thought there was more cooperation with some lower level government officials. Of course, that's what the Trump administration now is pointing to. But the FBI, but Kash Patel's group. Yeah, Kash Patel's group is not the geniuses in national intelligence that you would think. No surprise there. But the overarching summary or the sense of community memo, that's what it's called, completely undercuts Donald Trump's argument and will be used, I assure you, in the courtrooms to make Trump and his administration out to be a liar. Let me read to you from the memo, which again, I'll post on Legal AF's Substack. And we'll put it up on the screen. National Intelligence Council, sense of the community memorandum. In fact, we'll roll it so that you can see what the memo looks like. There's some redaction on it, some blackout, but not much. Certainly we can read it all. Let's go right to the heart of the matter on page 2. It says, Maduro regime probably not directing TDA activities. Well, there you have it, folks. The very thing that Donald Trump said in his proclamation and his justification to use the Alien Enemies Act has been completely refuted by his own national intelligence community. Just to be clear, so you don't think I'm making it up, this is dated the 7th of April, 2025. That means less than a month ago. This came out of Tulsi Gabbard's intelligence community. In fact, she directed this council, this National Intelligence Council, the NIC, to prepare this memo and take another look at the evidence and report back to her. I mean, one argument is none of this should have been withheld on confidential grounds, and it all should have been presented, but Donald Trump didn't want this leaking out while he's in the courts, but we have it now. Here's what it says. While Venezuela's permissive environment enables TDA to operate, the Maduro regime probably does not have a policy of cooperating with TDA and is not directing TDA movement to and operations in the United States. Okay, that's it. That's the only line that has to be quoted in any briefing to the Supreme Court or to other courts. The Venezuelan government is not directing TDA movement to and operations in the United States. The intelligence community, the IC, bases this judgment on Venezuelan law enforcement actions demonstrating the regime treats TDA as a threat, an uneasy mix of cooperation and confrontation rather than top-down directives characterizing the regime's ties to other armed groups, and the decentralized makeup of TDA that would make such a relationship logistically challenging. Let me explain that for a minute. And elsewhere in the memo, they say that the gang is very loosely organized. There's no top-down command and control structure. It is, as they say on the first page, a loosely organized cell of localized individual criminal networks. Well, how do you control that? And how does it control anything when it doesn't really have leadership the way we think of it in a government? Again, undercutting Donald Trump's own position taking in various court filings. In other words, he's been lying to the courts. They go on to say that furthermore, most of the IC, the intelligence community, judges the intelligence indicating that regime leaders are directing or enabling TDA migration to the United States is not credible. Let me repeat that. The intelligence community, the majority of it, does not believe that TDA migration to the United States is being directed by the Maduro regime. Again, pulls the other leg out from under Donald Trump's exercise of the Alien Enemies Act. They then put in there, this is the part that the Trump administration wants you to focus on. While the FBI analysts agree with the above assessment, they assess some Venezuelan government officials facilitate TDA members' migration from Venezuela to the United States and use members as proxies in other countries, including the United States, to advance what they see as the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing governments and undermining public safety in these countries, based on findings in 2024. Okay, so it's not that they're, I know the intelligence community for Donald Trump, such as it is, and the FBI and the Department of Justice are all saying, you left out the part about the FBI doesn't agree. Well, not quite. Let's listen to it again. While the FBI analysts agree with the above assessment that they do not control, the regime probably does not control TDA activities, they do believe that some Venezuelan government officials facilitate some migration to the U.S. in order to undermine public safety. Okay. But that is not what Donald Trump told the American people in his proclamation on declaring war effectively against Venezuela and TDA. It's really just that the regime officials are benefiting and getting some personal gain from it, but it's not that they are directing TDA. This is a big deal, folks. It shows that Donald Trump has been lying with his lawyers at the Department of Justice to federal judges. I'm looking at you, Judge Zinnis in Maryland, you've been lied to. Judge Boasberg in D.C., you've been lied to. Even Judge Rodriguez in the Southern District of Texas, you've been lied to. And certainly the Fourth Circuit has, and the Supreme Court has. Now, what do lawyers have to do with this? They have to take this newly declassified information obtained by the Freedom of Press Foundation, shout out to them, and they need to attach it to supplemental filings in all their cases to make it part of the record as these cases travel up to appeal to the Supreme Court. What I don't want is by the time we get to the United States Supreme Court doesn't know about this memo other than from the press, and it's not part of the record for their review. That we cannot let happen. But there's very good lawyers who are surrounding this issue, and I'm sure they'll be able to take care of that. Now, what has been the Trump reaction to all of this? Oh, well, you know. Tulsi Gabbard goes on Fox News and says, oh, but it doesn't report about, the leak doesn't report about the FBI having a different view. Well, first of all, it's not a leak. It's a declassification of your own memo generated by your intelligence community. And it does mention the FBI, and the reporting mentions the FBI, but it also says they agree with the general assessment. That's one. You have Pam Bondi's reaction when all the swirl happened in around March, where the Times and the Washington Post were getting some leaked reporting, some leaked information about this memo's existence. They then said, oh, we're going to crack down on leaks. We're going to open up criminal investigations. We got to tamp down on the leaks. But then they have egg on their face because they had to release the memo. Oh, because they would have lost before. They knew they were going to lose before a federal judge if they tried to argue this needed to continue to be classified. And so they had to finally release it. But look, they released it several months after they used the Alien Enemies Act. But the court cases still exist. So while Todd Blanche, the Department of Justice, is attacking the media and the press, and Tulsi Gabbard's trying to act like, oh, they're distorting what's in the memo, you be a judge. You be a judge for yourself. I'm posting it in the Legal AF Substack. You read it too. But we'll continue to follow it closely. This is a developing story, much like Signalgate, and we'll see how many heads are going to roll off of this. Does, for instance, I'll posit this, does Tulsi Gabbard survive? I think Donald Trump's happy that Tulsi Gabbard had her analysts take a closer look at the information and develop this memo and put it in writing. I don't think so. We'll see how she survives in her career, or is she going to get kicked upstairs, to something like the UN ambassador, like Mike Waltz or something? We'll have to watch it right here on Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the subscribe button, and come on over to our Legal AF Substack, where you'll see this memo. Until then, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. the Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.